is Kelly Goslin. I am this summer's archivist at the Anglican Diocese of Ontario, and I'm here to present to you the Archives Showcase. We are very fortunate to have the personal effects of Ada Leigh Lewis, the second wife of our first bishop, in the collections of the archives. Amongst these are her textiles, jewelry, and personal writings. However, in the collection, there are two items which really don't fit. One is a note, and the other one is a knife. What we have linking them together is very nearly a coherent story, but it still remains a bit of a mystery, so we're going to let you be the judge. Ada Leigh Lewis was born in 1865 in England and was both an accomplished writer as well as a philanthropist. In 1876, at the young age of 22, she began establishing the Ada Leigh Homes for Women and Children in Paris. These were hostels designed as safe refuges for women and children from the UK, its colonies, as well as the United States, who were often displaced by domestic abuse, destitution, and illness. In 1889, she married Bishop Lewis, and she moved to Kingston. She died eventually in 1931, leaving behind a legacy of 3 books and an extensive program for safe housing for women. In her collection, we have this note. The note states, "Relic from the Franklin expedition, courtesy Captain Simons." It was written on a folded set of paper from the Stafford Hotel, which is located in Baltimore. It ran from 1894 to 1973 and was the location for the elite of North America to attend, both for business conferences as well as personal leisure. We cannot ascertain whether or not Ada Leigh ever visited the Stafford, and we certainly can't be certain whether she met a Captain Simons. However, it's completely possible considering her own situation as both a socialite and a philanthropist. Now, if you are a history enthusiast, a lover of shipwrecks, or perhaps you saw Jared Harris's fantastic performance in The Terror, either way, you've probably heard of the Franklin expedition. In 1845, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror left from England under the command of Captains Sir John Franklin and Francis Crozier. They were tasked with navigating the treacherous and very unknown waters of the Northwest Passage in the Canadian Arctic to find navigable trade routes that would direct England towards Asia. However, tragedy struck when both ships were icebound near King William Island in the Victoria Strait. By 1848, John Franklin, as well as nearly 24 men, had died. Francis Crozier and the remaining crew ended up abandoning ship and walked over the ice, hoping to find mainland. They were never seen alive by any Europeans again. This story has become not only a part of our collective memory as history, but furthermore as legend. If this note is true and it's navigating us to a relic that was taken from the Franklin expedition, based on the age of the note, it would have had to have been found during one of the 20 different expeditions that were sent in pursuit of finding the Franklin over the last half of the 19th century. The item itself, of course, would have to be at the very latest from 1845, spring of. We went through Ada Leigh's personal effects and dated every single item that we possibly could, and only one actually fit the bill. It's a very peculiar knife with a particularly short blade. It's bone-handled and speckled with ink. We originally thought perhaps it was a letter opener and just strangely designed. However, extensive research has revealed that it's in fact a bloodletting knife, produced in 1830s to the 1840s by Sheffield cutlers in England. Bloodletting was a very common method for treating infection from the 5th century BCE all the way up to the early 19th century CE. It was based on humoral theory, particularly that of Galen following the 2nd century CE. He theorized that the human body was comprised of 4 humors: black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. These were all stationary within the body. Blood in particular would become stagnant, and would have to be released from the body to ease infection, sign of its stagnancy. By the mid-19th century, bloodletting was increasingly unpopular. Physicians had come to realize that blood was in fact circulatory and likely contributed more to the survival of the body than to its infection. Finally, germ theory arose in the 1850s, and that destroyed any remaining lingering beliefs in miasmic disease, and bloodletting became all but extinct. However, there is one exception to this. Bloodletting knives were still a necessary piece of equipment in medical cases in both military and naval purposes throughout the 1830s all the way up until the late 1860s. There are even photographs of bloodletting being conducted on sick Civil War soldiers from the United States. It's highly unlikely that Ada Leigh Lewis needed such an instrument that not only predated her by 20 years for its production, but was also considered deeply fraught with controversy by the time she was in the realm of understanding medicine. However, it would have very likely have been a required implement to be placed on the Franklin expedition. Furthermore, we know that in the late 1850s, on one of those recovery expeditions, a medical bag was indeed found and brought back to England. However, we cannot claim that this knife is in fact definitively the one referenced as a relic in this note. We can definitely not claim that it was on the very famous Franklin expedition. However, it is regardless a fascinating possibility and a wonderful mystery which we are very, very fortunate to house. Join us next week, where we will be exploring a remarkable piece of early monastic literature and its connections to the Diocese of Ontario.